you perhaps know the veiled truths hidden behind the cloaks of time, beyond the stories woven for us in the light of official history? Could the figure of a biblical monarch, renowned for his divine wisdom, have been transformed into a primordial archetype of mastery over the legions of hell? Is it possible that a king of Israel, exalted by God, wielded such unfathomable power that allowed him to command the very demons, not out of impiety, but as the custodian of ancient knowledge and an even more enigmatic divine purpose? Today we will embark on a revelatory odyssey, a journey that will transcend the boundaries of the merely theological to plunge into the depths of occultism and esotericism, revealing a side of King Solomon that few dare to speak of. This journey is not just a study of history. It is an invitation to inner alchemy, to reconfigure your perception of the universe, to understand how the veil between the sacred and the profane, the divine and the demonic, becomes translucent in the annals of certain traditions. This is transformative knowledge, a fragment of the forbidden texts waiting to be deciphered by those with the courage to look beyond the obvious, promising a spiritual enlightenment that will resonate in the depths of your being. We will discover how the young monarch, the one who built the majestic temple of Jerusalem with the blessing of Yahweh, metamorphosed through the lenses of Hellenism, the writings of Josephus, and the intricate narratives of Judaism and early Christianity, until he became an exorcist par excellence, a lord of spirits. We will explore the genesis of the famous Testament of Solomon, a primitive grimoire that narrates, in the first person, the delivery of a magic ring with a seal of Solomon, the tool that allowed him to subjugate entities such as Asmodeus, the king of demons, and use their power for celestial and earthly purposes. We will explore the winding paths that led him to be venerated as Suleiman in Islam, a prophet endowed with jinn and divine powers, and finally, how his legend laid the foundations of Solomonic magic and the vast tradition of all grimoires that populate the occult imagination today, unraveling the charms and amulets associated with his name. If you feel the call of this ancient wisdom, if your soul yearns to uncover the secrets that history has jealously guarded, I invite you to join our community of seekers. Like this video? Leave your comments with your first impressions and reflections. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel. This is just the first step on a path of knowledge that awaits you, a path to the truth that few dare to tread. It is imperative that we return to the primordial source, to the sacred tale that first carved him into the collective memory, to understand the magnitude of the figure of King Solomon. In the Hebrew Chronicles, he is presented to us as the third monarch of Israel, son of David and Bathsheba, born at the twilight of a turbulent era, destined by divine design to inherit a kingdom, already consolidated by his father's exploits. His name, Shalamus, which evokes peace and plenitude, already hinted at the promise of a reign of calm and prosperity, a deliberate contrast to the constant battles that defined David's legacy. From his anointing, he was perceived not as a mere dynastic successor, but as a chosen one, a vessel through which divine wisdom would manifest itself on the earthly plane. This is the Solomon who emerges from the canonical texts, still untainted by the occult, a blessed man, a vessel of grace, whose destiny would become inextricably intertwined with the very spirit of the nation of Israel. His accession to the throne was not a simple transition of power, but a ceremonial act imbued with mystical significance, a heavenly confirmation of his legitimate authority and cosmic purpose. The biblical narrative deepens this spiritual connection when it transports you to Gibeon, to the humble dream of the young sovereign. There, in the stillness of the night, before the manifestation of Yahweh, Solomon did not ask for immeasurable riches or the annihilation of his adversaries, but for an understanding heart to judge his people, to discern between good and evil. This request, so pure in its intention, resonated in the celestial planes, and he was granted not only the wisdom he longed for, but also abundance and glory as an additional gift and a manifestation of cosmic energy in his favor. Thus, he became the epitome of sacred intelligence, his judgment so acute that no intrigue could elude his perception, as attested by the famous episode of the two women and the infant, where his discernment transcended human logic to reveal the truth of the maternal heart, a testimony to the divine wisdom that dwelled within. This was the culminating moment of his investiture, the instant when the divine essence merged with his spirit, elevating him to an almost mythical status within Jewish tradition. This wisdom, far from being a mere intellectual attribute, was manifested in one of the greatest feats of antiquity, the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem. This was not just a building of stone and wood, but a tangible expression of the divine covenant with Israel, a holy of holies designed to house Yahweh's ineffable presence on earth. For 7 years, artisans from Phoenicia and experts from Israel worked under the inspired direction of King Solomon, erecting a structure of unparalleled magnificence, where gold and precious stones were not mere ornaments, but symbols of divine glory and purity. Every column, every engraving, every measure was imbued with cosmic significance, connecting the earthly microcosm with the heavenly macrocosm. The temple became the spiritual axis of the known world, the meeting point between the human and the divine, a beacon of the divine wisdom that Solomon embodied, consolidating his reign as a golden age where God's blessing was poured out upon his people through his mediation. Yet even the brightest light cast shadows, and Solomon's greatness began to be eclipsed by the subtleties of transgression. Although blessed with divine wisdom, the human heart is fallible, and pride can germinate even in the most fertile soil. Sacred texts whisper to us of his growing riches, his thousands of horses and chariots, and most critically, his multitude of wives and concubines, many of them foreigners, princesses of pagan nations. This accumulation of power and pleasure directly contradicted the divine admonitions delivered to the kings of Israel, which expressly forbade such excesses to prevent straying from Yahweh's path. The wisdom that was once his greatest virtue seemed to be clouded by the lure of political alliances and the ostentation of kingship, opening cracks in his spiritual armor and distancing him from the divine guidance that had elevated him. This is where the seeds of his eventual downfall were sown, a decline that was not sudden but gradual, fueled by decisions that, though seemingly mundane, had profound spiritual implications. Solomon's decline culminated in an act of apostasy. That would mark the beginning of the end of his golden age. Spurred by the influence of his foreign wives, he erected altars to pagan deities, allowing the worship of Ashtoreth, Chemosh, and Molech to infiltrate the very heart of Israel, a direct desecration of the covenant with Yahweh. King Solomon, the one who had built the house of the true God, now tolerated the presence of abominable idols, betraying divine wisdom and heavenly mandates, provoking divine wrath and the prophecy of the division of the kingdom. It was a moment of profound irony, the wisest of the wise succumbing to the most basic of human temptations. How could such a blessed monarch, endowed with such discernment, fall so miserably? What forces, seen and unseen, were operating in there? Shadows to divert this architect of the Jerusalem temple from his original purpose? The answer lies beyond the mere biblical chronicles, in the veiled testaments and forbidden grimoires that we will reveal to you below, where the fall of the earthly king is intertwined with the rise of the master of spirits, an alchemical transformation of power and influence. But what happens when wisdom, even that of divine origin, transcends the boundaries of its original context and encounters other frameworks of thought? The fall of Solomon, although tragic from a Hebrew theological perspective, was the prelude to an even deeper transformation in the collective imagination, a metamorphosis brewing in the crucible of Hellenism. Greek culture, in its expansion, encountered the figure of King Solomon and, far from limiting itself to his biblical exploits, reinterpreted him through the prism of its own philosophy and worldview. Leaving aside the narrative of his decline, Hellenistic thinkers saw in his divine wisdom not only a blessing bestowed by Yahweh, but a form of universal knowledge, a gnosis that transcended the merely religious to enter the realms of natural philosophy and magic. Solomon ceased to be merely the king of Israel and became a universal sage, a philosopher king who not only judged justly, but also understood the intricate mechanisms of the cosmos, a bridge between the visible and invisible worlds. This new lens, this inner alchemy of cultural interpretation, forged a much richer and more enigmatic image of Solomon, laying the groundwork for his legacy as a master of spirits and demonic figures dot in this fusion of cultural horizons. Solomon's divine wisdom was meticulously translated into Greek philosophical concepts, redefining its essence. His renowned expertise in discerning truth in the most complex judgments was transformed into Sophia, a practical wisdom elevated to the status of profound knowledge of universal laws. His legendary ability to understand the language of beasts and the properties of plants, beyond being a peculiar gift, was reinterpreted as an absolute mastery of natural philosophy, an understanding of the intricate web of life that few mortals could achieve. Thus, Solomon emerged as an archetype of the complete intellectual, a sage whose intellect was not limited to pure reason, but encompassed the comprehension of subtle and hidden realms. This process was fundamental for his figure to fit in and resonate with the esoteric currents of Hellenism, paving the way for the emergence of texts such as the Testament of Solomon, where his interaction with non-human entities is detailed, with a complexity that far exceeds the biblical accounts, granting him an almost mystical status that permeated Judaism. Early Christianity and Islam, it was in this fertile Hellenistic soil that Solomon's role as a master of demons took deep root, blossoming into a narrative that intertwined royal authority with mastery of the supernatural. Tales of his ability to subjugate spirits, such as the infamous Asmodeus, resonated with Greek beliefs in daemons, intermediary entities between gods and men, often malicious, and the practice of theurgy. For the Hellenistic mind, Solomon's ability was not merely a one-time divine favor, but the manifestation of an inherent Solomonic magic, a deep knowledge of the names and incantations that could control cosmic forces and the inhabitants of the underworld. A Testament of Solomon here becomes a key document, a bridge between worlds detailing how the king, armed with the magic ring and the seal of Solomon, not only subdues them, but interrogates them, extracting from them arcane knowledge about the natural and spiritual world. This vision presents him not as a mere pious king, but as a supreme occultist and exorcist, a pioneer of demonology, whose wisdom allowed him to exert unprecedented control over the jinn and other entities, employing charms and amulets as extensions of his will and esoteric knowledge. The synergy between these traditions gave rise to a figure of Solomon that transcended any cultural or religious limitations, consolidating his image as the archetype of the supreme magician and initiate into the deepest mysteries of esotericism. The grimoire emerged as the primary vehicle for the transmission of this forbidden knowledge, attributing to King Solomon a vast collection of spells, rituals, and methods for invoking and controlling spiritual entities. His name became synonymous with arcane power, a key to hidden dimensions. The historian Josephus, in his Antiquities of the Jews, had already attested to Solomon's reputation as a possessor of knowledge of exorcism, legitimizing this magical facet from a historical perspective. That resonated with classical scholarship. Thus, the Key of Solomon, although compiled centuries later, emerges as the culmination of this syncretism, a compendium of wisdom that fuses elements of Judaism, Hellenism, and other mystical currents. Solomon transformed from an earthly king to a master of the heavenly and subterranean realms, whose divine wisdom manifested not only in parables and judgments, but in the ability to manipulate the forces that shape reality itself. A legacy that nourished early Christianity and Islam, where he is venerated as Suleiman, the prophet with power over the jinn. This Hellenistic reinterpretation not only changed the perception of Solomon, but also laid the groundwork for his enduring influence on the esoteric and magical traditions of both the West and the East. He ceased to be a mere biblical figure to become a universal emblem of transcendent wisdom and power over the unseen. His divine wisdom was no longer seen as a passive gift, but as an active science, a gnosis accessible to those with the correct key, capable of unlocking the secrets of the cosmos and subduing its inhabitants. But if King Solomon, with his ring and seal, could exercise such authority over legions of jinn and demons, what does this imply about the true nature of his wisdom? Was this ability a miraculous gift or the result of a profound and dangerous knowledge, an inner alchemy? That transformed man into the ruler of the demonic? And more crucially, what other secrets, hidden in the folds of history and forgotten grimoires, remain veiled to those who dare to seek them? Beyond the Temple of Jerusalem and the known chronicles, inviting us to unravel the true scope of the Seal of Solomon and Solomonic magic in the ages that followed his reign? This is where Flavius Josephus, with his pen as a Judeo-Roman historian, draws back a crucial veil, revealing King Solomon not only as a monarch of divine wisdom, but as a true master of demons. His Antiquities of the Jews bear witness to an explicit Solomonic magic, where Solomon possessed the power to control and expel evil entities. This vision, so far removed from mere biblical allusions, was fundamental to Hellenism and cemented the perception of Solomon as an archetype of practical occultism. Josephus not only narrates the trials and the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem, but also presents King Solomon immersed in a transcendent art where exorcism becomes a palpable manifestation of his legacy. This chronicler, writing for an audience that understood the intricate relationships between the mortal and the supernatural, validated the king's esoteric dimension, revealing that his power extended far beyond earthly borders into the realms of demonology and the jinn, an understanding that would resonate for millennia. Josephus details precisely how Solomon bequeathed a method of exorcism to posterity, a rite he himself witnessed and described in detail. He tells of a Jew named Eleazar, who, in the presence of the Emperor Vespasian and his legions, cured demoniacs using a magic ring attributed to Solomon. This ring, according to the account, contained a specific root, and by applying it to the possessed person's nose, Eleazar expelled the demon. With an enchantment authored by King Solomon himself, the evil creature was then conjured to knock over a goblet of water as visible proof of its departure, an unequivocal demonstration of the power conferred by Solomon. This description, laden with nuances of ancient demonology and exorcism, not only establishes a direct link between Solomon and the practice of controlling and expelling evil beings, but also lays the historical and legendary foundations for the later veneration of the Seal of Solomon as a talisman of immense power, a true key of Solomon for mastering the unseen. The resonance of Josephus's description transcends Judaism, infusing his narrative into early Christianity and later Islam, where Suleiman is revered as a prophet with unquestioned authority over the jinn. Medieval and Renaissance grimoires, such as the famous Key of Solomon and the Testament of Solomon, find in Josephus a validation, a historical connection that elevates the figure of the king to that of a practical mystic, a pioneer in Solomonic magic. His testimony cemented the belief in an active divine wisdom, not merely contemplative, but capable of bending demonic wills and summoning even beings. As formidable as Asmodeus, suddenly the figure of Solomon became the prototype of the magician king, whose divine wisdom was an occult science, an arcane knowledge that allowed him to manipulate the invisible hierarchies of the cosmos through enchantments and amulets. Thus, the figure of Solomon is consolidated as the paradigm of authority over the supernatural, a living bridge between the divine gift and the esoteric application of knowledge. Solomonic magic is presented not as mere superstition or pagan practice, but as an occult science, an inner alchemy of knowledge that allows the initiate to govern spiritual hierarchies. This vision, so profoundly articulated by Josephus, invites us to question the limits of wisdom, suggesting that dominion over the demonic is a manifestation of a profound understanding of cosmic laws, a rarely accessible knowledge, reserved for those with the true key of Solomon. It is a call to personal reflection and transformation, to recognize that Solomon's power resided not only in his throne, but in his mind, in his ability to decipher the codes of the universe, Josephus's. Revelation compels us to a profound reflection and transformation, to see in Solomon not just a king, but a custodian of cosmic secrets, a key of Solomon to unravel the veil between worlds. His power over demons, his magic ring, and his seal of Solomon are not dead relics of a distant past, but vibrant echoes of ancient knowledge that resonates with cosmic energy, a rare and accessible knowledge for those who seek with conviction and an open mind. The story of Solomon as master of demons, far from being simple superstition, stands as a portal to a broader understanding of reality, hinting that the boundaries between the divine, the human, and the demonic are far more porous than orthodoxy allows us to believe. What if the true divine wisdom of Solomon resided precisely in this precarious balance, in this dance with shadows? And what lessons await to be unearthed by those willing to scrutinize beyond the obvious, deciphering the codes of his mysterious testament in the grimoires that still challenge us today? What occult resonance did the title Son of David possess beyond dynastic succession, or the messianic promise that would captivate generations? In the depths of Judaism and early Christianity, this appellation was intertwined with an ancestral power over invisible forces. It was an inheritance that transcended mere blood, a divine wisdom infused into the Davidic lineage, an innate aptitude for exorcism and the containment of demons. Not a simply acquired skill, but an inherent faculty, a cosmic imprint that enabled one to interact directly with jinn and other entities. This profound connection with the arcane, this mastery over the shadows, constituted the true distinctiveness of the Son of David in its most potent expression, the immutable foundation of Solomonic magic. How was this gift, this divine wisdom that allowed Solomon to exercise dominion over demons, transmitted? Tradition suggests an inherent initiation, an activation of dormant potentials in the Davidic lineage. Flavius Josephus, in his Antiquities of the Jews, reveals a Solomon who not only knew the art of expelling jinn, but had inherited from his father David a wisdom manifested in healing charms and amulets. This esoteric inheritance from David to Solomon was not a mere transfer of knowledge, but a profound understanding of the vibrations that govern the cosmos. Thus, Solomon stands as the epitome of a lineage of sages and mystics, not just monarchs, an aspect that occultism has jealously preserved in its most archaic grimoires. The era of Hellenism was a crucible where narratives of Solomon as an exorcist gained new traction, fusing Jewish tradition with Greek and Eastern influences on the spiritual world. Here, the Son of David as the wielder of power over spirits, already hinted at in Judaism, solidified, permeating the dawn of early Christianity. The Testament of Solomon, a crucial apocryphal text for demonology and Solomonic magic, embodies this convergence. In its pages, Solomon confronts legions of demons, including Asmodeus, interrogating and subduing them, forcing them to reveal their domains. This text reflects a profound belief in the ability of individuals with divine wisdom and ancestral authority to control the spiritual realm, a knowledge rare and accessible to initiates. The instruments of this Solomonic exorcism were as fascinating as the king himself. Solomon's magic ring, set with the powerful seal of Solomon, was the epicenter of his authority. It was not a mere ornament, but a conduit of cosmic energy, a key of Solomon for unleashing and constraining entities. This seal, with its intricate sacred geometry, was a diagram of power, a living amulet, capable of compelling even Asmodeus to submit, to reveal the secrets of his kingdom, and to participate in the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem. Later grimoires, such as the Keys of Solomon, are elaborations of these incantations and rituals, seeking to replicate Solomon's magic. Power, in truth, resides in the understanding of the forces and in the will of the one who wields it, reflecting a deep inner alchemy. The figure of Solomon as an exorcist, as the son of David who dominates demons, is a profound invitation to reflection and transformation. It reveals to us that true divine wisdom involves a direct confrontation with shadows, not only external, but also internal. His ability to subdue Asmodeus and other jinn is not only an act of power, but a metaphor for inner discipline, for the inner alchemy that transmutes chaos into order and fear into knowledge. This rare and accessible knowledge resonates with the cosmic energy that drives all manifestation, prompting us to question the nature of our own spiritual authority. What truths await to be revealed when we recognize that dominion over spirits is, in essence, dominion over oneself? And what mysteries await if we dare to look beyond conventional narratives toward the figure of Suleiman in Islam, whose connection to the jinn is equally enigmatic and profound, revealing new facets of his immutable legacy? The Genesis of the Testament of Solomon is a resonant echo of the cultural confluence of the Hellenistic period, an era where the boundaries between Judaism, early Christianity, and esoteric philosophies blurred in a melting pot of knowledge. This text, often relegated to the margins of the Apocrypha, is presented as a first-person revelation, an intimate chronicle of King Solomon himself, revealing how divine wisdom manifested not only in the construction of his kingdom, but also in his mastery of invisible forces. It narrates the momentous moment when an angel, usually identified as the Archangel Michael, bestowed upon him a magic ring engraved with the seal of Solomon. This was not a simple ornament, but an artifact of cosmic power, an alchemical tool capable of stripping the demons of their veil, forcing them to manifest and, more crucially, to obey. The Temple of Jerusalem, therefore, was not erected with stone and wood alone, but with the will of subjugated ethereal entities, a symphony of the divine and the infernal working under a single scepter. This tale establishes an inescapable bridge to occultism and esotericism, presenting itself as a cartography of a power that transcends the merely earthly, an invitation to decode the planes of existence that coexist with our own, and to recognize the cosmic energy that permeates each level. Delving into the depths of this forbidden text, we discover an intricate demonology, where each evil spirit possesses not only a name, but a specific function, an inherent weakness, and a method of conjuration. The Testament of Solomon details how the king, imbued with the Solomonic magic of the ring, summons and subdues legions of demons, from the most insignificant to Asmodeus, prince of demons himself, forcing them to reveal their domains, their schemes against humanity, and the exact enchantments that neutralize them. This process is not merely an exercise of coercive power. It is a profound inquiry into the nature of evil and darkness, both external and internal. Each demonic interrogation becomes a lesson in exorcism, a guide to unraveling the disharmonious energies that afflict soul and body. The descriptions of how each jinn is forced to work on the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem are potent metaphors for inner alchemy, where the chaotic forces of the psyche are transmuted and channeled toward a constructive and sacred purpose. Solomon, in this role, is not only a monarch, but a mystical master who teaches that true mastery lies in understanding and transmuting one's own shadow, using amulets and the Seal of Solomon as catalysts for this profound transformation. The symbolism of the Temple of Jerusalem in this narrative is crucial. It is not merely a physical structure, but a tangible manifestation of divine wisdom and of Solomon's power to harmonize chaos. The fact that it was built not by human slaves, but by subjugated demons, reveals a profound esoteric truth. The greatest spiritual works require the integration and control of all facets of existence, including the darkest. This mystical act elevates Solomon to a status beyond that of a mere king of Israel. It cements him as a master of demons, a figure who could manipulate the veils of reality and the collective subconscious. Even Josephus, in his Antiquities of the Jews, refers to Solomon's powers to exorcise demons and to the enchantments he left written for this purpose, although without the specificity of the Testament. This historical corroboration, albeit veiled, adds weight to the legendary figure of the king and to the authenticity of his Solomonic magic. The temple thus becomes a cosmic sanctuary, an epicenter of divine and magical energy, whose foundation is based on overcoming the most challenging telluric and spiritual forces. The influence of the Testament of Solomon transcends its Hellenistic origins to permeate deeply into Western occultism and diverse religious traditions. It is a seminal text that served as the basis for countless subsequent grimoires, the most famous of which is the Key of Solomon, which expands and codifies rituals, incantations, and seals for the invocation and control of spiritual entities. The figure of King Solomon as the great magician and exorcist was cemented through these texts, transforming him into a universal archetype of power and divine wisdom. His legacy is evident not only in Judaism and early Christianity with their Apocrypha, but also in Islam, where Solomon is recognized as a prophet with authority over the jinn, a parallel that underscores the cosmic resonance of his myth. These grimoires became repositories of rare and accessible knowledge, promising initiates access to the secrets of creation and the ability to manipulate the forces Solomon mastered. The transmission of this knowledge through amulets and symbols, such as the Seal of Solomon, invites us to consider how ancient Solomonic magic persists, adapting and evolving to this day, as a testament to the human quest to transcend the mundane. This rare and accessible knowledge from the Testament of Solomon compels us to profound reflection and transformation. If Solomon was able, through a divine gift and unwavering will, to subdue the demons to build the sacred temple, what does this tell us about our own potential and our ability to confront our internal and external shadows? Aren't the legions of jinn and demons mentioned in the text representations of the fears, addictions, illnesses, and disordered passions that torment the human psyche? The inner alchemy that Solomon practiced was not merely a feat of Solomonic magic, but a spiritual journey of self-knowledge, where darkness was understood and redirected to serve the light, a perpetual dance between order and chaos. It is an invitation to question our own boundaries of the possible and to search within ourselves for that magic ring of consciousness that allows us to name and master that which limits us. But what happens when the power wielded is so immense? Is there a blurred line between divine wisdom and mere control? And what does this reveal about the true nature of a king's authority over realms both seen and unseen? We have journeyed through the veils of time and tradition to unravel the enigmatic figure of King Solomon, from the monarch anointed by divine wisdom in the Hebrew Scriptures, builder of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, to the archetypal supreme magician who commands hosts of demons and jinn. His metamorphosis over the centuries from biblical narratives Through rereadings in Hellenism and interpretations by Josephus, to the intricate legends of Judaism, the complex debates of early Christianity, and the veneration of Suleiman as a prophet in Islam reveals an essential truth about the human psyche and its relationship to the numinous. The story of Solomon is not merely the tale of a wise king, but a perennial testament to humankind's ceaseless quest to understand and ultimately harmonize the unseen forces that weave the tapestry of existence. Grimoires, such as the famous Key of Solomon and the Testament of Solomon itself, are not simply compilations of charms or amulets, but ancestral echoes of a wisdom that perceives the cosmos as a system of correspondences, where the visible world is only a reflection of the invisible. The possession of a magic ring or the power to subdue Asmodeus and other entities of demonology is not a whim of fate, but the manifestation of a consciousness that has managed to penetrate the illusion of the separation between the spiritual and the material. This occultism inherent in the figure of Solomon invites us to profound reflection and transformation, suggesting that true power lies in the ability to look inward, to recognize and transmute our own shadows, to find within ourselves that seal of Solomon that grants us dominion over our deepest passions and fears, to build not a temple of stone, but a sanctuary of self-knowledge. So, doesn't King Solomon's true legacy lie in the possibility that each of us can, with divine wisdom and an iron will, confront and transmute our own inner demons, our fears and limitations, transforming them into builders of our own personal temple of fulfillment? This journey is not just a journey through history and myth, but an invitation to explore the frontiers of our own consciousness. If this immersion in the mysteries of King Solomon, in his Solomonic magic and the vast esotericism that surrounds him, has resonated in your soul, if the alchemy of this knowledge has lit a spark on your spiritual path, I urge you, with the solemnity of an ancient rite, to join our brotherhood of seekers. To share this journey of discovery with others is to expand the light of truth. Subscribe to this sanctuary of knowledge so that you don't miss a single fragment of the revelations that still await to be unveiled. Your participation is not only support, it is confirmation that there are souls ready to receive the veil and walk toward enlightenment. And for those whose thirst for knowledge is unquenchable, for those who feel the call of the ancient tomes and the whisper of hidden truths, the next stage of our journey already awaits. The path is marked. The Key of Solomon and the understanding of other grimoires are only the threshold to an even greater mystery. Prepare for the next enigma we will unravel, the secrets of Hermetic occultism, beyond charms and amulets, where we will delve deeper into how these ancient practices of exorcism and spiritual control are integrated into a philosophical system that seeks union with the divine. Demonology and the power over jinn are only starting points. The true journey is toward understanding the universal self and reintegration with the primordial source of all existence.